Just to point it out.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This brings us to our first public comment. It's on agenda items only. Because the agenda is full, you are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name as you come to the podium. Okay, we're going to move on. Can I get any motion to approve or any revisions to the agenda?
No, we worked that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Support.
Roll call. Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, now on to schedule reports. John Benzing is going to talk about reconfiguration of buildings.
Getting the lights down, John.
Might help.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
So last week, actually 2 weeks ago, Tim Simpson and I met with Tim Brown just to start a preliminary process of looking at the buildings, getting some basic numbers on building costs, things like that, maintenance costs. And then last week, Tim Simpson and I walked through all the buildings, looking at how we actually utilize the buildings, where the classrooms are, if there's empty classrooms, you know, how we're using each building and what is available in each building. The biggest current issue we have right now is our budget deficit. With the loss of around 200 students, this year we have a $1.5 million budget deficit that we cannot sustain. So, you know, I've heard a lot of rumors out there about why we're looking at this, so I just want everybody to know this is not a name change issue. This is not a campaign promise issue. This is strictly a budget issue. So the next piece of this current issue is busing costs. So we looked at the busing costs in the first year of this change, and they had risen at least $35,000. And I say at least $35,000 because the gas prices fluctuate throughout the year, and one of the pieces of this is gas prices. The increase in gas costs from one year to the next was around $21,000. So the additional piece of that, which I'm still not sure makes sense, would be the route changes. So third issue that we've heard a lot of complaints from parents about is congestion at Compass, especially during pickup and drop off. We've made a lot of changes over the past year to try to alleviate that, but we still have a lot of issues with how we get kids in and out of the buildings. We're seeing a lot of wear and tear on the gym because the kids are walking through the gym to get to the school based on where the buses are. So, you know, long term, that's not really something that, you know, we want to keep doing because it is going to cause a lot of wear and tear and maintenance on our gyms. The second thing that, or the fourth thing that we want to look at is lunch times at Compass. I personally have a third grader. She gets to school around 8:35. She has lunch at 10:30. So, you know, being a parent And being a part of this, I feel it. So, and another thing that we talked about during our campaign, we had done some research on how kids strive throughout the year and throughout the school day when they get a little bit longer lunch period and they're not rushed through their lunch. So one of the objectives, one of the current issues was we're rushing these Compass kids through lunch, and we've got to fit 5 grades in lunch throughout the day. Another issue at Compass is playground space. We've all heard this. You know, there's only so much we can do in the small space that we have on the one side of Compass. This time of year especially, it's going to get muddy, it's going to be dirty, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a mess, and there's nothing really that we can do other than AstroTurf the whole thing, and I don't think we can do that. STEAM buildings. One of the issues that we have in the current STEAM buildings is that we don't have proper gym or music facilities. So those students are being bused back and forth between the STEAM centers and Compass here. Because of that, one of the issues that we're seeing is that students are definitely missing valuable class time. So the time that it takes to get on the bus, come over here, get back on the bus, go back to the STEAM centers, you know, we're definitely losing valuable class time for those students. So that's something we'd like to alleviate. Another issue with things that we're looking at right now is the admin building. It's an old building, it has its issues, and it's definitely going to have increased maintenance costs going forward. I think right now we have somewhere between 8 and 12 admin staff in this big building, so it's not really being utilized properly. And then, final point that goes with the admin building, we're underutilizing pretty much all of our buildings right now. So even with this restructure, the loss of students, everything else, we're looking at a lot of empty classrooms in all the buildings. So we need to take advantage of that. So when we started talking about this, we wanted to have some goals. And the biggest goal, obviously, is to find significant savings to reduce our budget deficit. That's number one. The second piece of this is eliminating the need for additional busing. If, you know, like I said before, we're looking at least $35,000 in additional busing costs that we'd like to eliminate. This is a big one. We want to create additional opportunities for teacher collaboration. We've seen great strides in the teacher collaboration over the last couple of years. We'd like to look at that and actually try to improve it because we're seeing some good things from that. We want to reduce or eliminate the need for staff layoffs. This is another big topic. When we have a budget deficit like this and we've got to cut expenses, this is one of the topics that's going to come up, and we want to do everything we possibly can to reduce or eliminate this. Eliminate class time loss between buildings. We talked about that already. The other big thing is limit moving costs for the restructuring. Obviously, there's going to be costs involved with this. Preliminary costs seem quite doable. I don't want to throw out any numbers yet because we haven't investigated it enough. But I think, you know, obviously we're not going to talk about any plans that don't have significant cost savings that include the cost for moving. We want to reduce the teacher's responsibility for the move and the classroom preparation. I know one of the issues that the teachers had before was a limited amount of pay for actually moving their classrooms, which was quite significant. I believe they had to paint their own rooms. They had to supply furniture to their own rooms, pack up their rooms. So one of the goals of this restructuring would be to definitely reduce the teacher's responsibility in this move, make it as easy as possible for them, because I realize they've had to move several times and we don't want to keep, you know, uprooting their classrooms. Another big one, increased lunchtime for the younger students. Like I said before, we've done some research on this. There's definitely some information out there that says the younger kids do better when they get more time for lunch and they're not rushed through it. And then this is a big one, potentially close a building for the next 2 to 3 years. Based on preliminary numbers and what I've gone through and what Tim Simpson has gone through with me, I do believe that we have an opportunity to close a building, but I want to get into that more after we get some additional numbers and, you know, obviously talk to a lot more people. And then the next one is we've had some people look at the admin building. If we could sell the admin building and get rid of that, that would be some maintenance costs, that would be great, and we definitely have the room to move those admin staff to appropriate buildings. So next steps. The next step, big one, we gotta meet with the accounting department and get in additional information. I really wanna know what our actual savings are gonna be before we put another plan together. Once we have those numbers and we have a good plan, I wanna sit down with the superintendent and the principal to discuss those plans. I wanna make sure that they're on board, I wanna make sure that they're a part of this process. But I also wanna make sure that we have enough information to provide them before we do that. The next piece would be provide a detailed plan with changes to the building configuration, cost savings, moving costs, and future sustainability. The big piece about this is we don't want to make a move this year that we have to change in a year. You know, I think we need to have a minimum of 2 to 3 years to have this change work for us, possibly longer. I think we can do that based on the amount of empty rooms that we have in our, you know, in the current plan that we put together. And then I would like to vote on this no later than May 13th. So, a couple of things that I've heard, you know, people have said last time we did this restructuring, we brought in consultants. We spent, you know, years on this, like this was a very thought out process. I agree, I'd love to do that. We don't have the time. We have got to make some difficult decisions that are gonna affect the budget, and we need to do them quickly so everybody can plan properly for next year. So, that's all I got, and we'll be working hard on this going forward.
We can't spend the money to find out what to do right, so we just need to do something.
So, are we gonna get busing numbers?
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes. John's gonna get with Nikki and get those numbers.
Because I always thought gas was computed separately, but we'll find out.
Gas is computed separately,
But it's still included in that.
but it's part of our costs.
Right, I know, but I thought it might be in addition to the 35,000.
I think
It's part of, the 35,000 is part of it, but what we need to do is go back and look at how gas prices were at one year versus the other, and to see how much that
Yeah,
actual
apples
cost
to
change was. Because I didn't get a concrete number on what the actual additional routes cost. The only thing we could back into based on the information that we had was gas costs and the increase in that. And like I said, it was around 21,000 for additional gas. But the route costs are definitely more as well.
Do we have any insurance costs as far as insuring our budget?
That I don't know. I would assume that we pay one price for liability insurance for the year, and that covers the buses. I don't think the additional routes would.
That's what I was wondering if there's.
But I'll
based
look
on
into it.
mileage
I'll look into it.
And the
Right.
students' bus.
Right.
Brad, was anybody working on, I thought we had this going already. No?
Tim started it. Tim Brown started it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But nothing really, he's not pulled much of anything together other than the busing stuff and.
He's gave us some of the
Oh,
state of the maps.
the
and so-
facility, yeah.
We really started this about 2 weeks ago, Tim? Yeah, I mean, this is something that, you know,
Good plan.
with everything going on, there's pieces of the puzzle that have kind of gotten put aside.
Right.
So this was one that we thought was important, and that's why Tim and I jumped on it along with Tim Brown.
And I guess I'd also be interested in knowing what would the advantages be, not only money-wise, but obviously the lost time traveling. But what about electives? I mean, would there be more, could we offer, it seems like we could offer more electives here than, you know, in either one of the other buildings, you know, without sharing gym teachers and you have one gym teacher, one swimming teacher, band, art.
But and before there were more electives here because you had.
Well, I guess I'd just like to hear from the teachers on what electives they have there and how that would affect them. I mean, what would it look like here? Would they need something done to this building so they could continue to?
No, the facilities in this building are actually much better than they are in the STEAM centers. They'd have more opportunities in this building than they would at the STEAM centers.
Have we heard from, so we need to hear from the teachers and the administrators and,
And before, in this building for the middle school.
We're gonna have to be quiet, folks.
In this building for the middle school, they had clubs after school. So they had like a chess club, a programming club, some other things that were going on as well. So
They involve different grade levels.
different grade levels. Yep.
You know, before we vote on any of this, I would like to have a report from each of our department heads on the pros and cons of the proposal compared to what we're doing right now.
If we're looking at the 13th, I think maybe we should have a study session on the 6th. That would, we could bring them all in for that, because we should really have the early learning center principals. They already have 2 years
Does that
under
give
their
them enough
belt.
time to prepare, because I want to know the pros and cons of what we're saying.
Well,
Right, I'm just wondering why the 13th. I mean, it could go a little, I
Tim
mean,
and
I know
I-
you want to do it as soon as possible.
Tim and I talked about it, and mainly because
I mean, a decision.
we need decisions made
Right.
quickly,
End of the year is
End of the year is.
rapidly approaching.
Right. May
Well, let's
13th,
see
we
how
got a
fast
month.
we can get the reports, and we'll have to go
Yeah.
by that. We'll have to judge from that.
Yeah, I mean, we're literally a month out from the end of school on May 13th.
Yeah, I'll look to you for advice on that. Timeline of how quickly we could get, I mean, the pros and cons. Shouldn't be too hard to get them down. I mean, just a general overview.
That was research in the eighth grade, but I haven't liked our eighth grade setup from that first window. So I've been trying to find somewhere online the benefits to how we do it as seventh and 10th grade separated, or sort of the rest of the school district. And I did find the one study that was done in the 70s and 80s, but the principles are all, quite relevant now. And so I made a copy for each of you to read over before you make a decision, because it breaks down the pros and cons of all the different curriculum systems that exist in Michigan.
Hey, Brad, we started originally with 4 separate elementary schools that were all K through 4.
Supposed to be neighborhood schools.
Quadrant schools, and then we consolidated down to what we have now for the early learning centers. I think you and I have talked about this before, the K through 1 that we have there. So we kind of boiled them down and centralized resources to some degree, taking it from 4 schools serving that age group down to 2. Do you have thoughts, experience with such things you could maybe throw our way?
I have thoughts. I'm not sure if you want to hear my thoughts.
I'm always open to thoughts.
My first thought is, I try to look at things from an organizational point of view. I'm an old timer, so I like the good old Deming stuff, okay, and continuous improvement cycle. Plan, do, study, act. And what I see happening right now is skipping right over study, going right to act. And I personally think that's a recipe for disaster. I don't think that you want to rush into it. I think you need to study it. Okay? So that's my first thought in all this. Today is the first day I saw anything. First day I saw anything on this refiguring. So I need to wrap my head around it.
You were copied on emails last
Yes,
week.
I understand, but the information I received today that was the first time I saw it. Okay, and I need to wrap my head around it a little bit to see whether, whether the data that I'm getting is correct. I don't know if we took into account, the special education rooms, the resource rooms. I know you have EI rooms on the one thing, but I don't know if you have taken into consideration the resource rooms or the sensory room that we have and the maker space rooms that we have and those kind of things. So I think, the one thing I did hear today that made me feel better than I felt last week was the fact that you were going to actually have a conversation with the superintendent and the principals. I think that's absolutely critical.
And the teachers.
Okay, and the teachers, because I think that there's a lot to this, a lot more than we've been thinking about, routing, buses, lunchtime situations with specials. If we put another grade in the early learning centers, now we have to accommodate specials, okay? And you have to accommodate another lunch, and maybe you lose that space. You have to have specials for the second grade in there now. So there's lots of issues, that we need to take a look at. Staffing, staffing is an operation of the administration. Okay, that's who does the staffing. okay? And you don't just take into consideration personalities. You want your teaching staff to be professional, okay? So that a factor of whether they like each other is nice, but it's not a determining factor when you staff, okay? And so that's something that our administration has to look at. That's an operational issue that they need to do. So my advice would be the same thing I said 2 weeks ago, and that is relax and take a breath, okay, and study the issue and not rush into it. Because I'm not sure if we have even enough data right now to make that decision.
We were like that for years, so it obviously works.
So,
And my understanding is you already had some conversations with administration about this, so I'd like to hear that data
my
too.
conversation with the administration was very simple. If there is reconfiguration, give me your thoughts on it, as far as.
We'd like to hear that information.
Right, so, and we have not got to that point yet where they've.
When did you ask them for their thoughts?
I asked them a week ago.
A week
So
and
this
nothing?
Thursday, no, this Thursday I expect to hear something.
Okay, good, then we'll put that together, but,
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, it's kinda hard to, you're talking about money and a budget and wasted time on buses and ruining gym floors and, I mean, common sense wise, it makes sense to put the 7th and 8th graders back in a
I'll be-
building that suits their size.
I'll be totally transparent. I'll tell you the same thing I told the administrators, I can tell you the same thing I told some of the board members. I might as well just make sure the audience understands it. I'll be totally transparent and honest. I told them, and they can correct me if I'm saying something that they really didn't hear, okay? I told them that chances are, if I'd have been the superintendent here, the configuration that we have right now wouldn't have happened. I would have probably advised against it, okay? Not saying that I'm right or wrong, it's just an opinion, okay? And it's not knocking anything that was done before. I think some of those things can work. But my only point is, before we go back to another configuration, that we may end up having the same, some of the same issues with down the road, is we really need to take a really good look at it and study it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I personally, my advice is, 2 weeks is too soon. If you want to make a decision on May 13th, that's your decision. You asked the question,
Yeah,
I gave you the answer.
And in all honesty,
Okay.
I agree with them that 2 weeks we've gotta give them time to come back with information and,
It was a
I'm not-
preliminary goal,
Right.
and obviously, we can
Yeah.
always improve goals.
Yep, absolutely.
but if you're getting your information back this Thursday, then,
And I believe
but another
possibly
week.
John is gonna come on Thursday to talk to him, I'm not sure, I talked to Tim about that today. We have an administrative meeting at 9 o'clock Thursday morning, and that might be a good time to at least start the conversation. I don't think we'll get it finished.
I'd be happy
Yeah,
to.
okay, so that might be a good way to start that.
Who else is going? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Who else is going besides you?
Brad, if we are looking at trying a study session next week sometime, does that give you enough time to get some things together and some administrators to wrap their heads around it and come in, or should we plan for a study session on the 13th? What kind of timeline?
I got some pretty bright people. I think they can pull it together in the sticks if we ask them to. And if they give me some pushback, then we'll make it the 13th. But I believe that they're very capable of giving me some answers by the 6th. And I see some heads nodding, so I go with that.
I was envisioning that building administrators would have a conversation with their teachers, particularly in the early learning centers, because that's been really successful, I think, when we consolidated 4 schools into 2 for that age group. And drawing on their experience would probably be a good place to start, but I'd like them to have that conversation with their teachers, bring it up to the administrators, and then onto the board so we can get it in stages as organized as possible.
I think we can make that happen.
Excellent.
I've been really looking into this 7th and 8th grade thing, because it just doesn't seem like anybody else has ever tried what we're trying right now, what we've been trying with it. And so one of the things I did is I went online, what are the best school districts in the state doing? Bloomfield Hills, middle school is 5th through 8th. Okemos is the 5th and 6th building and the 7th and 8th building. Troy is the 6th through 8th building. Birmingham is the 6th through 8th. Grosse Pointe is 6th through 8th. Novi is 5 and 6 building and a 7 and 8 building, and Saline is a 6 and 8 building. And I might add that when I first moved to Tecumseh, the 8th grade here was in the high school.
Yeah. And look, you're talking to an old middle school principal in the 6-8 building. You know, it's my first love. In fact, I told somebody the other day, if I had a choice right now to go back in time and make a decision on my career track, either stay as a middle school principal or go the way I went, I probably would have stayed as a middle school principal. The decision I would have made back then. So I don't disagree with that. I can't, because that's my life I've lived for many years.
What do you think of putting 4 schools in the same 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, but treating them as 2 different schools?
I think that school within a school concept works. I was in a middle school in Deerfield, 400 students, K-12. And one of the things, they knew I was a middle school principal coming in, and one of the things they asked is, we really want the middle school concept. And so we created a school within a school at Deerfield. And we had a 6-8 middle school concept within that building of K-12. So yeah, I think.
In this building, pretty much that was originally a 5th grade center, that addition, and that pretty much is separate from the rest. I mean, I'm not sure, maybe there's a way to kind of keep the 7th and 8th somewhat separated.
There definitely is.
But then they have their elective classes, and I would like to expand that to meet job markets, you know, in the future, in the high school as well as here.
Yeah.
So that's a thought too.
So John, you'll be there on
Thursday at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Be there, okay, right in the little meeting room as you walk in the door. And I'm hearing that
You mind if I come
on the
too?
6th, we're going to have a work session.
Yeah.
Jim's going?
Yep.
Are you? Okay, I will.
I work.
Just remember, you can only have 3 people.
Yeah, 3.
That's all we got.
Tax season's over.
Tim, John, and Suzanne.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
Forward to the information.
All right, next up, 2018-19 district calendar revisions. Brad, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I want to just do a couple of things. I'll start out with a couple of things I want to make sure I don't forget to say. Okay? And it is an action item, but I would like to table the action item until I have time to actually talk to the union about this, okay? In the calendar that was put out, you know, I'm just kind of learning as I go here, okay? There is a date, I believe it's the 18th, that was set to be a day for potential snow day. But I do know that the union does want to have a chat with me. They have some other ideas, which is fine. This is new to me because, I'll be honest with you, any district I've ever been in, we just comply with state law. And we've always built in days at the end of the year, and it's just a given, okay? But we did have 11 days that we missed with snow. 6 of those days we get forgiven. Leaves 5 days. When I got here, first thing I did, I went for the waiver. I realized the waiver hadn't been done yet. So we should get the 3 days for the waiver. Leaves us 2 days that we have to make up. So either it's going to be at the 2 days at the end of the year, you know, we'll just move them up because a half day counts, or we'll see what the union has to say as far as an alternate idea. So if we could just table that action item until I've had a talk with them, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Okay.
Wasn't there actually House floor that was looking to waive those? Yeah.
There is a bill, I've got the information in here, but there's 2 different ones, they haven't acted on it yet. And quite frankly, they're getting some kickback from superintendents in some way, in some districts, because it's kind of hard to talk out of both sides of your mouth. Either you need 180 days or you don't.
Right,
Okay,
that's
so,
what I was thinking.
you know, so it's kind of like, yeah, you know, you give them, you know, 5 more days, but yet we're saying that we need that days for instruction. And so many schools are already made up their minds that if they get it, even if a bill passes, they're not going to do it.
It seems when the state declares an emergency, they should give us a little leeway, but I understand.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then the 2019-20 LISD budget resolution.
Yeah, this is, it's in your, I think it's also an action item. It's just pretty much a formality at this point in time, unless you want to be one of the districts in Nottaway County that says no, that's fine, but it happens every now and then. I used to actually be a district that said no all the time. But, it's been vetted pretty good throughout the last few weeks, and my suggestion would be that we just go along and pass their budget resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and then the next item is donations. We have one from First Federal Bank of the Midwest to Special Olympics for $100. We have an anonymous donation to THS Peer-to-Peer for $80. And then we have a Martin's Home Center to Robotics Club for $300.
Very nice.
The next item is the One Tecumseh Initiative. John and I met with the Jason from Siena Heights this afternoon, and he's kind of got a rough format, I guess I'd call it, kind of put together. So still gonna need about another week so we have everything, and he's also gonna look into coming in and presenting it for us as well. So
That's
a survey that went out. Yeah.
Deciding the 13th for that then?
I'd have to check
With him on date.
So, yeah.
Can we tentatively put that on the tentative agenda or whatever?
He was open to it, but needed he needed a decent amount of
More time. So,
to-
but let me check with him, and I can always, the 13th? Oh, I thought you were saying next week. Let me check with him, and if he can, we'll put him on the agenda.
When is it next week?
13th.
Yeah, so I thought, okay.
Yep. And that's all I have on that. The committees will get going soon. Brad and I gotta get together and work that out, so.
Add it to the list.
All right. Brad, special education
Yeah,
update?
very, very pleased to announce that we do have, just today, confirmation from Greg Brown. He's a teacher presently at Lincoln Schools in Washtenaw County. He's a resident of Blissfield. And he's accepted our position for a coordinator, director for support services, special education. I think he brings a very unique perspective to the job. He has 2 special needs students himself. He's been on the other side.
That's what you meant.
He's had to be a parent advocate as well as advocating on the teaching side, administrative side of things. So he plans on starting May 16th, and I'm sure we're going to get him right running when he gets there.
All right, good. And then the MSAB workshop dates?
Yes, they did get back with me. I know that you indicated that Saturdays is tough for some of the board members, and they said that just give them some dates. They're willing to come during the week, but Mondays are very premium.
Okay.
Chances of us getting a Monday date right now from them is very slim.
Okay.
But they are other dates available. We just have to give them some dates. They very common for them to do evening dates.
Okay.
Okay, so they're looking forward to start some of these, and if we can get some dates for them during the week, we can get started.
But weren't we doing it with another district?
Could we? We could, but right now we're not.
I thought that was the whole plan.
Talked about that.
Oh, somebody talked about it.
So I really need, I just texted her today that I'd be talking about this tonight. So you need to try to get some dates in the calendar. You don't have to do it right now, but, give me a few dates.
Into the future, we
Right.
so busy right now.
Next couple weeks.
We need to-
It's important, it's really important, I think, that we get them scheduled as soon
But
as
they're only an
possible.
hour, right? Unless you do 2 or
I
hour.
believe they're only an hour, but
Yeah,
I think
okay.
when they come in the evenings, they probably want to do more than one.
Right.
And we had 3 we were looking at, so,
Yeah, I think we want to do at least 2 or 3 hours.
yeah.
Yeah. But we had talked about Britton Deerfield doing it with us.
I don't know if they've got the availability, and it's hard enough getting our schedules
Yeah,
coordinated.
I know, true.
I'm not worried about their
Yeah.
schedules.
And we get the big guns from them. They're gonna send either the person in charge or the next person in charge. So that's good. It's good stuff. They're both good ladies.
Okay.
You said Wednesdays are good for you, Mike?
I'll be there any day, but Wednesdays,
I mean, Wednesdays are good for me too.
I can make any day.
Wednesday's good.
Okay.
Not next week.
Wednesday.
When I travel, so I'm out of town.
Maybe a couple weeks out.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because we'll be back in 2 weeks, so,
Okay.
Yeah, Milt's back to the 13th.
yeah, so after
So
that.
after.
Date is back.
Please.
After that here.
I'm such
All right, so let's move on to action items. We're gonna skip the district calendar for now. We need a motion to approve the 2019-2020 LISD budget resolution.
I move that we support and approve the 2019-2020 LISD budget resolution.
Second.
Tecumseh.
Aye.
Brooks. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then in your packet is the letter of agreement with the TEA about the pay scale grievances that we had earlier. So if I can get a motion to approve that, I can get that signed, we can put it to bed.
I make a motion that we approve the letter of agreement for the TEA grievances.
Second.
Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. And then Brad, do you want to tell us a little bit about the revisions to the agreement for the
I
LSD?
started looking at this once I got here, and Nikki came and talked to me, and it became pretty evident that we really were being a little overstaffed. Okay, that the work that was being done in 40 hours, we knew we could have it done in less time, and that was actually the person doing the job. And so we said, you know, there's really no reason that we shouldn't be wasting money if we think we can do it in 24 hours. Let's change the agreement, let's have you here 24 hours, and let's try to save some districts some money. And we're not losing any efficiency or anything like that whatsoever. So I just think it was a good thing for them to catch, and I appreciate them catching it, bringing it to my attention.
Questions? Good. Can I get a motion to sign the revised agreement with the LISD for financial services?
And they're available, if we do need additional time,
Yes.
that's not an issue.
No, not, and yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because no, we did say there may be some times, and that's not a big deal, but right now, we're not putting anybody out of work because we have, we do the ISD.
And I know that she shares positions with other districts possibly, and so, okay, as long as we still got availability.
Yeah, we have, if we run into a pinch, we've got availability.
Perfect, thank you.
And we're under contract with them until June,
I believe so.
end of June? How much is that a year for?
I had to ask her that question. I don't know if Nikki's here, she might know this. I'm gonna say a figure that I don't think is. What is it, Nikki?
Right there.
$240,000.
I thought, that's why I thought
It's around
246 or 7 or something.
$240,000. When we did the analysis, that's actually cheaper than what Tecumseh was spending 10 years ago having their own services here. So if we went back and tried to do it ourselves, I really believe we'd be in the 400, you know, just my ballpark without crunching the numbers, probably in the $400,000 range. So we're getting a
So
pretty.
you're saying it would take 4 people?
It'd take as many people as we have right now. As many
How many do
FTEs.
we have?
I think it's Nikki, help me out.
It's 3.7 people,
Yeah,
4 people.
3.7.
I mean, 4 humans, but
Right.
3.7 FTEs.
Right, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
No
to take a look at
aliens.
that, doing it ourselves, we're probably in the $350,000, $450,000 range. So we're getting a pretty good, we're getting a lot of services for a pretty good amount of money, pretty cheap.
That includes all financial services, right, payroll and
Yes. Yeah.
payroll reporting, everything.
Absolutely.
Payroll alone. Expensive.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the agreement with the LISD for the financial services?
I move that we approve the revisions to the agreement with the LISD for financial services.
Second?
Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Support.
Benson.
Aye.
Brooks. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item scheduled for next agenda is good news, discussion reports, and action items. And then we're gonna have a meeting, is it May 6th?
6th is a
Study
Monday.
session.
How about a grant update?
And do you want a grant update then too?
You have that in your packet, I don't know if it got put in or not.
It did.
Would you like Megan to come and actually do a presentation?
I would like to start rotating people through, like Megan and, even,
Nikki and.
yeah, Nikki, and just rotate, all the different departments through.
Devin.
Yeah, Devin, the guy that's leaving.
Yeah, I'd like to have a report so we can establish some interaction. Okay, not a problem.
So we're gonna do that at the 13th meeting then? Okay.
Sure.
And then the 6th is just the study session on the buildings.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, this brings us to our second public comment portion. The agendas are full, each person is limited to 3 minutes. Please come to the podium and state your name. You want to speak? All right, Brad, you've been giving us updates, but why not one more?
Right
Just
now.
one more.
Tim is here, he's gonna be leaving us, and we regret that he is, but we're happy for him, and wish him well in his next endeavor. Okay, get us a bunch of little cheap technology from PSP, and we'll be all set, okay? But one of the things that we are going to kind of step back a little bit, not quite what I thought it would be, but I talked with Gary Orr from Gardner today. Him and his engineer came, they walked the buildings with Carly, and he took a look at some of the energy savings that we're looking at. But he's also has done this for higher education. He's done this for ProMedica Hospital, some K-12s, where he's actually wanted just taking a really look at the current data, the staffing, the O&M costs, building analytics, and then provided those entities, hospitals, higher education, K-12s, with a profile of what the next director or person who's going to be leading their companies in maintenance really needs to have, what certifications they need to have, what skill sets are necessary to really get us through, to look at training needs for the district, equipment needs, optimizing services, optimizing custodial and maintenance. So he does a real thorough audit. And I think having a third opinion, someone outside the district to do that for us, free, feasibility, okay, it's always nice.
Yeah,
That's
we
always
like
good.
that.
Is really, I think, a benefit to the district. Okay, and then, once we get that information, we'll get the job posted. Okay, and we'll try to find someone who can closely match those skill sets that we're looking for. Okay. We'll probably get input from Tim along the way. And once again, Tim, thank you and wish you luck. Hope you do, and I know you'll do well there.
I saw that you also extended the deadline for the $100 of people retiring. Is anybody taking that?
I don't know for sure. I know we have, we think right now we have around 7 or 8 people that we, unofficially could be leaving the district in one way or another.
Okay.
A couple of them are retiring, some are moving.
Okay.
We'll get a better handle on that. And obviously, that's a huge thing to consider, because it may eliminate one of the things that John put on there that is a concern, and that is, layoff of teachers. So, that'll be something that we'll be really looking close at. Actually, we're looking at that. Stacy's
giving me some really good information. She's going to continue to feed me some good information on some of those things. And we're looking very closely at our staffing with the hopes that we don't have to make any layoffs.
So are you already aware of people that are leaving?
We're unofficially aware of some people who may be leaving, yes. But, you know, to sit here and say anything right now,
Oh, no, I know.
officially, I
Sure.
don't have that information. I would share, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, we're sort of confident that we have between maybe 6 and 9 right now that we know of.
Okay, we need to have a board member comments, discussion, anything else anybody wants to add?
Well, I just had a thought, have we heard anything or any input from any of our unions on reconfiguration?
But I did have a really good meeting with the two union, I don't know if they're co-presidents or one of the president and vice president, I'm not sure. And that was you know, just to kind of get to know each other a little bit, and I'll be honest and transparent, and I think they would be also if they were here. That one of the questions that I asked them was to really go back and reflect on their role in the stuff that's taken place in Tecumseh over the last year or two, or a year and a half. Okay, and how can they help from building this from the inside out? Because I really believe that they have the capability, the power to solve a lot of the issues if they look at it that way. Okay, so I've had a good conversation with them initially, and I wasn't interested in a long list of things that they wanted me to try to fix. Okay, I try to tell them, I'm here day to day. I might not be able to fix anything. Okay, before I even take a look at your list, you go back to your constituents and you reflect on that. Okay, and it's the same thing I've asked everyone else to do. It's the same thing I've asked the administrators to do. And they've given me some our administrative team has given me some very good feedback on those reflections. And I know the teaching staff will do the same thing. But to answer your question, Mike, directly, no.
Okay. Anybody want to ask them?
Yeah, good idea.
John. That's good.
So, one of the things that we ran on, can everybody hear me? One of the things that we ran on was transparency. And I know that, you know, one of the things that we're struggling with, we have added an additional meeting. So we are getting information out to everybody twice a month instead of once a month. But we also want to get more information out to everybody on maybe a weekly basis. So we reached out to legal just to make sure that we could do it. And we can start a Facebook page. We're thinking about, we got to put some policies and procedures for the board itself together before we even consider this. But what we would like to do is have a page that is just information only. You know, like this week, you know, we had a pretty busy week. Tim and I were in the schools. You know, we met with the survey guy today. You know, there's just a lot going on that we wouldn't necessarily get out to you guys until a board meeting. So to keep everybody up to date on what's actually going on with the board, we'd like to start an informational only Facebook page. So my initial thoughts on it are, it would definitely not allow any comments or anything, and it would not get into any in-depth discussions. It would be more of just, hey, this is what we did this week, or, you know, one of the things, I was trying to think of a good example, the investigation. You know, we've met with the investigators, and they're hoping to have the investigation wrapped up by the end of next month. So, I mean, that's important information that you wouldn't necessarily know without us getting it out to you or at a board meeting. So, you know, we definitely want to have a Facebook page out there that's comments only, information only, that gets that out there. So we do have to have board approval on that, though.
One other thing we forgot, Brad, is your contract.
So really,
We'll just table that.
They love you.
No offense.
So, can I get a motion to approve back Brad's contract? It's in the
I
packet
move to
here.
approve Brad's contract.
It's not on the extra. Support.
Sorry, Brad.
Sorry, Brad.
It wasn't on the agenda, so.
Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Any other board comments or discussion?
Thanks for putting up with me not being here during tax season. I appreciate it. I'm back.
But
All
I
right.
saw you celebrate Tecumseh. You were celebrating Tecumseh, the two of you, I saw you.
Yeah, we were. All right, now we need a motion to go into closed session, consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure, the state or federal statute, section 8, subsection H, attorney-client privilege.
So moved. That's perfect. Second.
I'll second.
Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara. Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
So they're gonna come back, they'll have their bill. So they'll have this and then they come back and okay.
Then they'll vote, or they won't vote.
In session is 8:09. Next item on the agenda is decision of the FOI appeal, denial action taken on March 25th, 2019. Vicki's going to read.
Whereas on March 1st, 2019, Tecumseh Public School District received a request for public records under Michigan's Freedom of Information Act, MCL 15.231. Requesting communications sent via electronic mail to a Tecumseh Public Schools student expressing unhappiness with the appointment of the co-superintendent. FOIA requires the district to provide non-exempt public information which existed at the time of the request. The district's then interim co-superintendent provided a written response to the requestor on March 4th, 2019, stating that the email communication to the Tecumseh Public Schools student expressing unhappiness with the appointment of the co-superintendent did not exist because they had been previously deleted and were not maintained by the district. Pursuant to FOIA, the district's written response informed the requester of the right to appeal the non-disclosure action taken by the then interim co-superintendent to the district's Board of Education. On March 13, 2019, the district received via electronic email an appeal from the individual that made the original request for public records under FOIA, requesting that the Board of Education review the previous denial of the request for public records, stating that the district should have regular data backups of the email servers. At the March 25th, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of Education, the board acted to uphold the prior denial dated March 4th, 2019, and signed by the then co-superintendent. The board's action was based on information that it received from the then co-superintendent stating that the requested records did not exist at the time of the request. While searching for records related to another request for public records under FOIA, the district located an email that will be responsive to the FOIA request received March 1st, 2019, which requested communications sent via electronic mail to the Tecumseh Public Schools student expressing unhappiness with the appointment of the co-superintendent. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education rescinds its action taken on March 25th, 2019, where it upheld the previous denial for the disclosure of public records dated March 4th, 2019, and signed by the co-superintendent. The Board of Education directs the district's FOIA coordinator to provide those public records which are responsive to the FOIA request received by the district on March 1st, 2019, that are not exempt from disclosure under FOIA to the requesting individual as reasonably as possible. I make a motion to accept the resolution.
Support.
Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McNamara.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Support.
Benzing.
Aye.
Brooks.
Sorry, I wonder what that will
Johnson.
contain when you.